I don't see where I'm. School districts and classrooms in crisis around the country. Staff shortages stretching your schools thin.
In my tenure to start, we used to get 100 applicants for a teaching position. Now we might get 10.
And kids who need to catch up in the classroom.
We're trying to get to a point where we're supporting students where they are, but also accelerating the learning, especially in literacy and mathematics.
Those young lives changed forever, still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic that upended our lives nearly 4 years ago.
The pandemic caused kids to stay home. They missed developmental markers, especially socially.
But school district leaders also see progress being made.
And last year we started the school year with 40 vacancies that were filled with long-term subs. This year, we started the school year with less than a dozen.
And hope on the horizon.
I think at the end of the day, you know, we're getting back to a sense of our kids want to learn.
And welcome to this News Channel 3 Crisis in the Classroom special. We thank you for joining us wherever you're watching us, on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, mobile app, or on our website, WWMT.com.
Over the next half hour, we are going to hit on the biggest issues facing West Michigan school districts, what's driving those problems, and what's already happening to try and fix them. Here's a rundown of the topics we'll be covering tonight. Almost all school districts are experiencing significant staffing shortages inside and outside of the classroom. We're also talking to teachers and superintendents about student behavior, mental health, and the growing role that social media and technology play in the lives of kids, parents, and educators. But first, an issue we've been talking about for years and seemingly getting worse every day.
A study published last month finds hundreds, potentially thousands of K-12 students here in Michigan are learning without a certified teacher. Our Rachel Louise Just looks at just how seriously our schools are struggling.
We heard stories of students crying because their teacher said that they were leaving and this was the only trusted individual they had.
In Michigan, the studies are no longer focusing on if there's an educator shortage, but how severe it is.
Pipeline is leaking from the beginning to the end.
A 12-month study finding Michigan's school staffing shortage has only gotten worse in recent years, especially in rural and low-income areas.
The study was conducted by the Michigan Alliance for Student Opportunity, researchers from the University of Michigan and Michigan State, and public policy associates. The study finding that schools are becoming more and more desperate to fill open positions, even resorting to poaching teachers from one district to another, an issue that 60% of surveyed district leaders said was a problem.
Leaders in low-income districts discussed not being able to do anything about their staff being poached because surrounding districts were offering, in some cases, 5 figures or more.
The impact on students is notable, including cutting courses, poor instruction because of staff shortages, and some students not even getting to school because of bus driver shortages.
Students stopped trusting that the leader of their classroom, their teacher, was going to stay in their building.
Experts say things may get worse as additional funding from COVID dollars that still remains in Michigan is set to expire next year.
It's unclear what's going to happen in 2024 when that cliff comes.
The study outlining a few reasons why schools are having a hard time finding anyone to fill or even apply for their jobs, including continual policy changes that make it hard for teachers to stay long term, a lack of public respect for educators, and low pay and incentives. Peter Spatafor with the Michigan Alliance for Student Opportunity says starting in 2008, resources for schools started to be cut in Michigan.
We now have a roadmap to try and solve the most severe problems first, but it's certainly not something that's going to be done overnight or statewide.
Policy experts saying it's not Washington, but Lansing that could make significant policy changes. They propose enhancing resources from COVID to stop a funding cliff, get resources to hard-to-staff subject areas, consider permanent substitutes for districts, and improving working conditions. In Lansing, Rachel Louise Just.
A key solution to most seem to agree on is boosting pay for school workers. Battle Creek Public Schools will be paying teachers more than almost any other school district in Southwest Michigan beginning next year. The district is using money from a $51 million grant from the W.K. Kellogg's Foundation to boost every teacher's pay from $40,000 to $50,000.
Teachers are undercompensated, and we wanted to make sure that we do our best to right that and make sure that we're really investing in them.
This is going to make that a lot easier to take that stress of how am I going to pay the bills kind of off the table. This is really life-changing.
This is about economic vitality, it's about recruitment, and it's about making sure that our students have access to the best.
Battle Creek Schools has even worked out a huge incentive for aspiring homeowners. All district employees can get up to $20,000 towards buying a new home, as long as it is within the city and school district limits. Employees have to work at Battle Creek Schools for at least 3 years, and district leaders say this strategy is working.
We've had up to 87% of teachers and administrators who purchased homes stay longer than the 3-year obligation or requirement from the program. I think it says when you invest in teachers, when you invest in the talent that you have serving students, and when you see them as, a whole individual and help them acquire a piece of property and or something that they actually wanted to do, it speaks volumes with saying, we believe in you, we see you, and we want you to stay and be a part of community.
Well, Harper Creek Schools also says it is feeling a teacher shortage for the first time this year. News Channel 3 morning anchor Kirk Mason spoke with the superintendent there, Rob Ridgway, to see the solutions they are already putting into place.
Let's talk about teachers. We hear a lot about a teacher shortage. How concerned are you about that?
We're concerned about the teacher shortage. We hadn't seen it really hit Harper Creek really until this year. This is the first year where we do have some long-term substitutes in our positions within our school. A few things that we've done. One is we were fortunate to be a participant in the Grow Your Own grant. So we have 18 teachers or 18 staff members who are going to become teachers at some point in time. Right now the grant is for 3 years, so we are very hopeful that we'll have a group of staff members who will be certified teachers in the short term. And then the other aspect that we've done is partnered with local colleges and universities, and specifically for us, Albion College, they send over their teacher candidates and they have experiences throughout their college career, and then some of them do their student teaching with Harper Creek. And we've actually hired several of those student teachers to be full-time teachers.
We know money is part of the factor behind a teacher shortage, and obviously teachers are a taxpayer-funded position, so there are limits there. Are there other things that need to change to make more people realize this is an important profession that is worth being really a calling, so to speak?
We need to respect the teaching profession, and I think that is true, throughout our society, that teachers are important people. It seems like nowadays that people come to school and put a lot of blame on teachers, and they feel that. We need to make sure that we talk to them and tell them when they do a good job. Give them that affirmation that they're really doing some great work. Within our school district, we've had a initiative with staff morale. And I'm not going to sit here and say our staff morale is the perfect staff morale in the area, but we really worked hard on it, and we've done several things throughout the year to ensure that people feel affirmed, or they feel like they're given that opportunity to that they're doing a good job. Other things that are important, they want to have a say in decision making. They want to make sure that they can trust their leaders. Someone like me, if I say something, then I'm going to follow through with it. But staff morale has been something that I think is important. Another thing at Harper Creek that we were proud of is that we think collaboration of teachers is an important aspect for teachers to feel valued. So every Wednesday we do have an early release, and sometimes our parents don't understand what's going on during that time. Well, it's critical for our teachers to get together and talk about teaching and learning so they can have growth on their own. They need to become better as well. And looking at student data, talking to each other, and how can we help students understand a standard, maybe a really tough standard, and I'm struggling at it as a teacher, and maybe my colleague can help me. In the past, we just didn't have time to do that kind of work unless they did it on their own, after school or before school. So those are a few aspects that we've done. But number one is let's make sure that teachers understand how important they are to our kids and our society.
Now, of course, it isn't just teachers who are harder to find these days, and it isn't just teachers who feel underpaid and underappreciated.
Well, districts of all shapes and sizes are trying to hire food service workers, childcare professionals, and especially bus drivers. Over the last year, we've reported on bus driver shortages, forcing Kalamazoo, South Haven, Constantine, and most recently 3 Rivers schools to cancel routes at times. Constantine actually kept students home for a day last school year because of the shortage. The Kalamazoo Public Schools Board voted over the summer to raise bus driver pay to $19 an hour. And we also spoke with Ridgway on the first day of the new school year back in August. He told us it's critical in this job market to offer competitive paychecks. It's why the school board bumped the bus driver signing bonus to $1,500 and boosted pay by $3 an hour. Even so, Ridgway says getting new bus drivers on board is a unique challenge.
Well, driving a bus is hard. You are looking and driving while people are behind you, and so it's not an easy position. And it takes a special person to be a bus driver, and it takes a really special person to be really good at it.
Portage Public Schools went into the new school year with 50 open positions, 20 of them in the cafeteria alone. In August, Dining Services Director Susan Livingston told us that the district fed 51% of its students last year. She says it could hit 90% this year since the state approved free breakfast and lunch for all public school students.
Every child should be able to eat for free at school. We're excited, but at the same point apprehensive because we're still trying to staff up.
Well, that free breakfast and lunch program was extended for this year, and a bill in the state Senate would make the program permanent.
It's being paid for through a $24.3 billion educational aid budget signed by Governor Whitmer in July, creating the highest per pupil funding plan in Michigan history.
My first hour students many times come in hungry. And even though there's lunch, it's nice to know that they'll have lunch, or right before lunch that they'll have something to eat, because many times they come in very hungry.
The governor also touts a $328 million boost to school safety and mental health, specifically to hire more school resource officers and counselors. This money will also boost the number of slots available for Michigan families to take advantage of free pre-K.
This is how we level the playing field. This is how we ensure every student is prepared to be successful, and that's why you won't see it overnight, but these investments over time are going to pay off massive dividends for the Michigan economy, but most importantly for the success of our kids.
Talking with educators about where problems are being solved and where gaps still exist. Here's another conversation that Kirk Mason had with the Portage Public Schools teacher about what he's seeing in his district and his classroom.
And joining me now is Chris Furlong. He's a Portage Northern High School health teacher. He's also the Teachers Union president with the Portage Education Association. And Chris, let me ask you this. Portage schools are seen as a place where people want to work. So my question is, when the teacher shortage we hear so much about across the state, is that impacting a place like the Portage School District?
Yeah, it is impacting us a little bit, just not as fast as it is in the rural districts. Portage is still a sought after place. We still have phenomenal facilities, and we continue to do that. So people do want to come and be part of the Portage education system, and people are moving here to do that. But yeah, it's affecting us, but not nearly what it would affect the little schools. And I think we're kind of blessed from that perspective. We're starting to get in line with our pay at the bottom, and of course at the top. I think we do a pretty good job with that as well.
Well, let me ask you to put your expertise hat on this. Then it would seem to me then the smaller rural school districts are going to battle this teacher shortage even more. In some cases, a district like Portage is going to wind up taking teachers from a place like that. The obvious is pay. I get that. But taxpayers are involved in footing the bill for salaries. What other things can be done beyond pay to try and attract more teachers to this profession?
Well, I think it's the respect that we get in the media, in those outlets. It's the positive things that we celebrate, and more so doing that versus the negative things we always hear about from that perspective. I think a lot of times people don't want to go into education as a few other professions because there's such this negativity about what we do. And the reality of it is there's a few bad apples in every situation. But as a teacher, we are choosing to do a really good job with students and educating them. And pay is really good, but the other part of it is like, how are you treated by your administration? What does it look like, facilities wise? You look at our Portage and the new buildings that are coming in, and the state-of-the-art technology and the air conditioning, which is huge as we go deeper into the summer months.
So one of the things the state is doing to try and address the teacher shortage is offering a path for people who already work in a school, an easier path to become a teacher. They're not a teacher now. As a teacher, as a president of the union, do you like that idea, or do you think it hurts quality potentially?
Well, I think I like the idea of someone who's coming into the building and spent some time there and seeing what it's really like to be in the educational world. I mean, whether you're a teacher, a paraprofessional, a lunch supervisor, a bus driver, I think we offer unique circumstances and very unique situations a lot of times. So I think, someone who comes in and spends a little bit of time and really has a passion to get into the education to be a teacher, I think it's a fantastic idea. I just, would hope that when they're doing that, they're doing it in a way that make sure that the teachers are ready for the classroom. There's a lot of programs out there that you can get, your degree in 18 to 24 months, but are you really going through the training that's necessary and understanding what it takes to be a classroom teacher every day?
Chris, you're in a classroom every day. You're talking with students. My question is, have students changed dramatically coming out of the pandemic? I mean, you hear the stories, but you're there. What are you seeing from students right now?
I think everybody has come out of the pandemic differently based on your environment in which you're growing up in, or based on, who you're around, or the type of education, or the expectations from your parents or guardians, whoever those might be. I think at the end of the day, we're getting back to a sense of where kids want to learn. I do feel like kids are more involved than they were before because they missed out so many opportunities. So I think they feel like they're more involved. I mean, if you look across the state, numbers in certain things are up quite a bit because people want to be involved. But I think at the end of the day, kids are just kids, and we're starting to see, what normal seems like for some people has been normal for me most of the time in education.
You're a health teacher. We know mental health is such a part of the conversation right now. We think about kids with that. Again, I want to kind of lean on your expertise because you're in the classroom around kids. When we think about social media and phones, I mean, that is a part of kids' life. How concerned should parents be about that impact? I mean, what do you see with kids from the expertise of a health teacher?
Well, I don't even want to say from a health teacher perspective, but let's just say as an educator in perspective from this point, phones are, in my opinion, should not be allowed in the classroom. But it is part of their everyday life, and we have a one-to-one technology with a Chromebook. So if they're not communicating on their phones, they're communicating, on the computers. It's just been a different world. It's just a different world we live in. I think the phones consume a lot of our kids. It's that constant connection, that constant needing to know what's going on all the time. And from my perspective, I think we would get more out of it if our classrooms and our educational facilities just didn't have phones allowed for the amount of time a kid was in class. They have a hallway time to pass. That would be a great time to use the phone, but right now I think phones in the classroom situation are not helping the situation at all. And in some cases, kids lean on it so much to try to find answers that we're losing the critical thinking skills that they need. We're also losing the communication skills that they need. It's amazing the number of students that can't have or hold a conversation with an adult or with their own peers.
How do you fight that? I guess you mentioned maybe keeping phones out of the classroom, but that seems like a big challenge to get kids to be able to look an adult in the eye and talk to them in the way they need to talk to them.
From my perspective, it's just constantly reminding them that it's not needed. It's a constant engagement with the students in the classroom, having those conversations and keeping your topics and engaging and up to date and current. Those are some of the things that the kids want. Also then showing the benefit of having those conversations and what it's going to look like when they're out in the workforce in the next 5 to 10 years.
All right. We're going to leave it there. Chris Furlong, a high school teacher, Portage Northern High School, also the president of the union for the Portage Education Association. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Harper Creek superintendent agrees with Furlong's take. He says that parents have a responsibility to protect their kids and to keep their education on track.
If I ask you the #1 issue facing school districts right now, what is it?
I would say the mental health crisis and the behaviors we see of students because of that. It's certainly not all students, but we do have a small percentage of students with extreme behaviors that our teachers have to deal with on a daily basis. And it's not just our teachers, but it's the other kids in the classroom as well that are struggling with their education because of disruptions that are occurring.
Did that get worse coming out of the pandemic? What are you seeing?
Yeah, certainly. The pandemic caused kids to stay home. They missed developmental markers, especially socially. And so we definitely saw a spike in behaviors. And so to combat that, we have folks within our school district, behavioral specialists specifically. We also have partnerships with Summit Point and Grace Health, where we have mental health professionals in the school to help kids through these processes. But it's difficult. It's difficult for our teachers.
You brought up mental health as the #1 issue. I think about, you're talking about behavior, but I also think about what kids nowadays deal with. So many of them have phones all the time. There's the social media pressures. How is that impacting kids on a daily basis? Do you worry about that?
I do. There's a few different things. One is with the access to phones. There's access 24 hours a day. When I was in school, things may happen at school and then there's a reprieve, for a time. But now social media is 24/7. The other things that I worry about is the fact that kids are seeing things that they're not developmentally ready for. Potentially, super aggressive behavior, other things that you might see on a YouTube or a TikTok that kids just are not ready to see, and they think that's normal behavior. So therefore, when they go to school, they act out some of these behaviors, and that's some of the extreme behaviors that we're seeing.
Is it possible for parents to really know what they're seeing? Can they be aggressive to know?
Yes, we actually brought in a group called Zero Eyes. They're a nonprofit organization, and they talk to our kids, they talk to our parents and our staff as to how they can protect their kids. There are definitely things you can do technology-wise as a parent so that you can limit that access to certain sites, as well as yourself saying you have limits at night. Take the phone away from the kids when they go to bed. So that they're not looking at it all night long, because it's just a natural reaction to look to see what's the update on my social media, what's going on in the moment at 2, 3 in the morning. I have a group of teachers that told me the other day that they think that sleep is one of the biggest factors with the behaviors we're seeing.
They're not getting enough sleep, I see.
Not getting enough sleep. An elementary age student, I looked it up, the research says 10 to 11 hours a night. We need to make sure our kids are getting proper sleep, and taking those phones away is a piece of that. Regular bedtimes, routines at home, those are all things that we can do to help kids with their development so that they can be able to function at school in a positive manner.
Well, every school district we speak with talks about learning loss during the COVID-19 pandemic. Test scores slipped badly across the country as students struggle to adapt to learning from home. Battle Creek Public Schools says there are 2 subjects where kids seem to fall behind the most.
What we've seen impacted as a result of the pandemic is just the learning, the in-person learning that occurs in literacy and mathematics that's needed. Virtual learning was not a avenue for kids to be successful. Not all kids. Some kids found success, but many did not. And so now we're trying to get to a point where we're supporting students where they are, but also accelerating the learning, especially in literacy and mathematics. We really have to ensure that our staff, our teachers, our principals, our parents, and the community understand what great literacy instruction looks like and those strategies that are needed in order to help accelerate that learning. And so it takes a partnership effort. It's not just a school responsibility, but it's all of us supporting students to get that instruction back to where it once was.
The Kalamazoo Public Schools Superintendent Darren Slade says students can obviously not be successful if they're not showing up to class.
Attendance is a focal point for Dr. Slade, who is in his first year with the district and trying to improve an absenteeism rate that hit a staggering 27% last year.
Slade tells News Channel 3's Allie Jenner-John that he's putting together a team that will show up at a student's front door if they chronically cut class.
The new school year is in full swing. Students settling back into their busy fall routines.
I'm currently playing soccer. I do choir in school, and I love running and just playing a bunch of sports activities.
Trying to find the energy amid the hustle and bustle to show up to school ready and alert.
I still am motivated to still learn and stuff like that.
Kalamazoo Public Schools Superintendent Darren Slade says getting into the classroom is the most important step in a person's success.
Improving student outcomes is probably my #1 passion.
And he's wasting no time making sure every seat is filled.
We're making attendance very important. Starting at the top with me as the superintendent, we're going to emphasize the importance of being in school every day. We're making attendance something that's important.
This year, he says every school has an attendance committee made up of principals, teachers, and counselors. He says they'll have 2 meetings a month and they'll look at the attendance records of every child in their school building.
They'll make a decision, okay, we need to have that parent come in and that student come in and have a face-to-face meeting so we could discuss next steps.
He says parents should be aware and involved with getting their kids in the school building.
That was Allie Jenner-John reporting. Nationally, the ACT says that test scores on the college readiness exam are down to 19.5 points out of a possible 36. That's a 30-year low. But Michigan students who took the test last year scored much better than the national average at 24.4 points. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, ACT scores were widely used by colleges to decide whether to admit a high school graduate, but many universities have stopped considering them since then.
Well, a new report just out this week from Kalamazoo's W.E. Upjohn Institute for Employment Research finds Michigan's college enrollment dropped 11.4% between the fall of 2019 and the fall of 2022. That is the 7th largest drop in the country and almost double the national average. The report finds college enrollment went up during the same period in 5 states. Now, that same report specifically looks at how college enrollment rates for Kalamazoo public schools compare to districts like Battle Creek and Grand Rapids, which the report says are more similar in terms of social, economic, and educational factors. Researchers say Kalamazoo public schools actually fares much better than what the report calls similar urban school districts, as far as students who go on to college within 6 months of graduating. The report also says KPS was at roughly 53% in 2022 compared to the 44% average for similar urban schools. Although KPS college enrollment has dropped every year since 2018, it has stayed significantly above similar district rates. Well, researchers say that's very likely due, at least in part, to the Kalamazoo Promise.
And the report attributes the promise as one reason why Kalamazoo graduates also complete their college degrees at higher rates than similar urban districts. The promise has been around since the fall of 2005. Kalamazoo Public Schools says district enrollment is up 24% since then. The promise has provided some 7,600 scholars with 100% tuition and fees to any of Michigan's 4- and 2-year colleges, as well as trade programs, certificates, and vocational studies. Kalamazoo Promise scholars have 10 years to take advantage of this program after graduating high school. Battle Creek Public Schools announces its version of the promise earlier this year, and it's called the Bearcat Advantage. It covers up to 100% of tuition and fees to any 4-year university in Michigan and extends to the nearly 100 historically black colleges or universities across the country. The district surprised students with that announcement back in May, opening doors that some thought were closed.
This is a big deal for me because at first I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to college because like financially I didn't know if I was going to be financially prepared for all the student loans and stuff like that. But right now this is a big game changer for me.
Well, like the Kalamazoo Promise, students eligible for Battle Creek's Bearcat Advantage must go to school in the district for at least their high school years. The district expects it to convince more families to come to the district and stay there.
What we're finding is families are excited. They are wanting to be a part of our district for this advantage. They really are thankful that now college is an option for their students and for their families.
Teachers and superintendents everywhere are now on high alert and trying to stay ahead of what's coming next.
Yeah, what's coming next? Artificial intelligence technology, in fact, is developing so rapidly it's already seeping into classrooms and lesson plans everywhere. Frustratingly, for educators, it is not clear yet whether AI is actually a crisis at all.
And News Channel 3's Autumn Pitcher went to Battle Creek Lakeview to see how teachers are trying to navigate this new frontier.
The clock is ticking for school districts to decide how AI should be used in the classroom. A Lakeview High School teacher I spoke to says there are many AI platforms, some educational, others deceptive.
As teachers, we need to really educate our students and teach them how to use AI properly because AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Where's Kayla W? Darcy Hassing, an English teacher at Lakeview High School who studies AI, is looking to incorporate it in the classroom, saying transparency with students is key.
I tell them, I know it's there. I know you guys play around with it. There's nothing wrong with that. But we got to talk about the right way. There are so many different ways you can use it ethically. Generating ideas, brainstorming. The inappropriate ways are having it just to do your work for you and passing off AI as your own work.
ChatGPT has been blocked by the district even though students can access it at home.
One of the big things with technology groups, they're saying you need to really reevaluate your assignments and kind of AI-proof your assignments. Focusing on the critical thinking and creativity and depth of thought versus just regurgitating information.
When it comes to showing your students ethical and unethical ways to use AI, Hassing turns to online tools for help.
The guidance at the state level, there's not a ton. Different people are iterating and are thinking about this and trying to find ways to make it work. But from an overall, is there a directive on how this should happen? There is not. Right.
Tom Leitz is with the Michigan Association for Secondary School Principals. He says there's a reason why around a dozen schools I reached out to declined an interview about AI.
Why don't principals or superintendents want to give these answers? Because in a lot of cases, we're all just learning this together right now.
While working on their plan, Lakeview has already implemented detective devices through Turnitin.com.
When students submit their work, it will run it through their plagiarism detector, and it also runs it through their AI detector. Now, we don't use this as a gotcha tool. We use this as a teaching tool.
Outside of computers, Hassing says teachers can spot usage.
If you have students for a period of time in their writing, you catch on to what their writing style is.
Leitz says college professors have made incorrect assumptions.
Colleges got in trouble for not giving kids credit or et cetera because they said they cheated and they hadn't.
MASSP is beginning to host AI conferences across the state to enhance understanding between all sectors. Leitz says principals, superintendents, teachers, and even students are welcome, adding these are the first of many conversations. Autumn Pitcher, News Channel 3.
We are always on the hunt for new stories about the problems facing West Michigan school districts and solutions that are being explored.
Yeah, you can leave us a story tip wherever you're watching this special report online right now. Call our tip line or send us an email. All that information is available to you as well on our website, WWMT.com. Now, thanks for joining us for this digital exclusive Crisis in the Classroom special.